better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and thanks for choosing to be here with us on this Friday, the 6th of March. And hey everybody, welcome to Fixed Ops Friday. As we know, the smartest operators in the country are quietly shifting their strategy right now. It's not about selling more cars, although that's part of it. It's about owning the service lane. While automotive debates EVs, tariffs, and shrinking front-end grosses, the very best stores in all automotive are building technician pipelines, commercial service operations, and service lanes that actually generate inventory. Because here's the truth most of us don't want to fully admit. The biggest profit opportunity in dealerships today in March of 2026, it's not the showroom, it's fixed ops. And today we've got 3 operators on the show today proving exactly how they're doing it. Let's get into it. And first, today's auto industry headlines. Today in the news, we are leading with an update on Scout Motors. Just days after 2 Volkswagen dealers filed a class action lawsuit alleging Scout's direct-to-consumer model violates dealer franchise agreements, Scout announced it has surpassed 160,000 vehicle reservations for its Terra pickup and Traveler SUV. That's at least $16 million collected at $100 a pop, a figure that is similar to the one cited in the lawsuit as evidence that Scout is already transacting directly with consumers, bypassing the dealer network entirely. Scout has emphasized that those are reservations, they're not sales, and that customers can cancel. Still, dealers aren't buying that distinction, and with Scout's CEO projecting deliveries of said reservations out to 2028, this legal battle has plenty of runway left. If you want to hear more about the battle, go to our show Wednesday, where we interviewed the attorney who's representing the 2 dealers in a class action suit in which he says the putative suit allows all dealers to join as they proceed forward. So you can check that out from Wednesday. Next up today, from one big used car headline to another, General Motors is consolidating its certified pre-owned business under a single platform called Car Bravo. Effective June 2nd, all certified used Chevrolet, Buick, and GMC vehicles will move under the Car Bravo umbrella, making it GM's sole CPO program for those 3 brands in the United States. Cadillac, however, will keep its own separate program. But the move, GM says, is designed to simplify the buying experience and give more dealers a cleaner, nationally branded way to merchandise certified inventory. And as a personal aside, I love what GM is doing right now. The head of GM came on to the Car Dealership Guy show, Daily Dealer Live from NADA. Their discipline in inventory production is very cool. And I think dealers are well served to give them a little bit of flexibility as they move forward with this venture. Either way, it's hard not to read. This is a direct shot at Carvana, which sold nearly 600,000 units last year and is gunning for 3 million units this year. So props to Chevy as they compete with Carvana. All right, next up today, before we go, let's run through the buy-sell wire straight off the CDG buy-sell tracker. It's been an active wire for the past few days. First, Lithia closed on Toyota of Gallatin, just north of Nashville, on March 2nd. That's picking up its 4th Tennessee store from the Stumbo Automotive. Lithia's CEO says the group is continuing to target high-growth markets, and the deal brings their total acquired U.S. annual revenue to, get this, $225 million so far. Down in the Southeast, Tamarin Gulf Coast, a division of Cannon Motor Company, added 3 Mobile, Alabama stores from Carlock Automotive, Audi Mobile, Volkswagen Mobile, and Volvo Cars Mobile. That deal closed February 23rd and pushes Cannon Motors' footprint to nearly 40 rooftops across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And finally, a feel-good one to close on. Frank Mastravito of Mastravito Auto Group fulfilled a childhood dream, purchasing a Chevy store on Commercial Drive in Yorkville, New York, from Lead Car. He now owns 2 dealerships on the same strip he pointed to as then a 12-year-old, telling his parents, one day I'll own those stores. Props to him for making that dream come true, and part of the American dream the auto industry is. As always, for the buy sell tracker, head to cdgbuysell.com. And we love our cdgbuysell.com tracker buzz jingle. We love it. And that, folks, is a wrap on today's industry headlines. And welcome, everybody, to Fix Ops Friday. Well, it's Fix Ops Friday. If it's Friday, it's Fix Ops Friday, which means today is the day we get to dive deep into the service drive, into the fixed operations. We've got 3 incredible operators joining us today. First up, we've got, and actually as a reminder before we go into this, I'm a little off my normal flow today. First up today, let's go to the chat. Remember, you can push your comments anywhere across CDG platforms. We're streaming across all Car Dealership Guide platforms. Our own Michelle says, let's go Fixed Ops Friday. Paul Salzman, excited for my Fixed Ops Friday education session. Thanks for watching, Paul Salzman. Hannah Farmer, happy Fixed Ops Friday. And Ed Roberts, thank God it's Fixed Ops Friday. Ed, we appreciate you, and you've got a little skin in the game with today's show. So first up, we're going to go to Garry Kaiser, president of LB Smith Ford Lincoln. Garry, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sam. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you being here. Hey, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do there at LB Smith Ford Lincoln.
So currently I'm the president, general manager of LB Smith Ford Lincoln. It'd take me all day probably to tell you the whole journey, but as a young kid, 16 years old, I got into a little bit of a Y in the road, and I had to decide if I was going to go to an ROTC boot camp or find a job. And my teacher found me a job at LB Smith, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, you find a family, and our owners, the Jordans, have believed in me and have allowed me to do every job from, when I started on the lot, to a tech, to a service advisor, to a service manager, the whole way up through. And it's been a great ride.
So Garry, what would you say to those in the auto industry that say, hey, this industry is changing? And really, what was the American dream, which means somebody could come in at a young age like you did and realize unlimited potential? What would you say to that person that says, hey, the American dream in automotive is dead? Is it dead, or is it still thriving, Garry?
Oh, no, it's thriving. I still sit in interviews and hire young lads that, are looking for jobs, and they start on the lot or in quick lane or, one of our departments, and the next thing you know, they're selling cars. And it just, once you get into this industry, there's so many different careers under one rooftop, and it's just so exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's Fix Ops Friday. You recently shared, you've got a new mantra at your auto group for 2026. Share with us that mantra and how it came to be.
So it's so exciting, for us right now. We opened a Ford Pro Elite, 33,000 square foot, 26 bays. Extra large bays for the commercial world. We grew that commercial business so much that we had to, build a building. And fixed ops has always been our backbone. We love fixed ops. We crush fixed ops. And this year, with moving so much gross out of our main shop, we had to figure out fixed ops again. And I thought, how are we going to do this in our fixed ops meeting? So we got 2026 is the year. So we named it 2020 Fixed, made t-shirts for all.
I love that.
Because this is the year of fixed ops. Fixed ops is 2026, and we got to figure it out.
2020 Fixed. I think that's a great rally cry for the entire auto industry. In fact, I have a personal ask. Will you send me, I'll pay you, I'll send you a check. I want one of those shirts. I want a 2020 Fixed shirt from you guys there.
Yeah. So, they wear it on the weekends just to remind them that, we're not here. We still got our easy path is now something we got to recreate.
So that Ford Pro Elite Commercial Service Center, that's a major commitment. That's a big financial investment. What made you decide this was the right strategic move in 2026?
So we've been working on it for a couple years, and our commercial business just grew out of control, and these commercial accounts, there's no one's taking care of them. They're waiting. That's their offices and that's their toolboxes, and they're sitting on lots and not getting repaired, right? So if you can turn them fast, it's low hanging fruit. I mean,
Yeah.
the commercial world doesn't really, monitor the price of the repair. They monitor the time of the repair. So go ahead.
Why is it such an unmet need? Why did it pop up almost out of nowhere that created this opportunity that you're capitalizing on?
It didn't pop up out of nowhere. We had a vision,
Okay.
We had a vision probably 2018 that this is what we wanted to chase, right? So one of my foremans and myself, we sat at Sheets, Wawa, Rudders every morning at 5:30, and we would write down everyone that was getting fuel that day. Yeah. And then we would go visit them and say, look, all we want's your warranty work. We know John's doing, or whoever's doing your repairs, right? Just give us our chance at your warranty work. And then we're going to pick it up and deliver it, right? So this was before Ford even had pick up and delivery and mobile and all that. So once we created that team to pick up and deliver and allow them to keep their day going, it just grew and grew, that it was busting at the seams in our main shop, right? We got 37 stalls in our main shop, and it just was out of control.
Do you see the nature of that business or the demand there increasing, declining, staying flat? I mean, obviously you've invested planning for the increase, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely increasing. I mean, there's so much out there. There's so many commercial and just their average Joe that has one landscaping vehicle that he's trying to make a paycheck for, right? To pay that.
What does a typical commercial customer relationship look like compared to a retail one?
So it's a good question. When we were building this building, we're like, well, we really don't need a waiting room because we go pick them up and they don't come in, right? Or they drop off. So the commercial customers, all they care about is getting their vehicle back because their tools are in that vehicle to fix what they need to fix.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go into the comments. Angelica Surprise says 2020 fixed. I think she's picking up off your rally cry, 2020 fixed. Props to Angelica. And then Eager K comes into the text with an update from a Mannheim auction. It says, good afternoon, fellas. Just got done with auction today at Mannheim, New England. Had a great day. Big engine vehicles are getting dumped by dealers. Gas prices scares going on right now. And I think that's in reference to the stuff going on in Iran, the impact on oil overnight. Price of crude oil shot up, and there's some uncertainty out there. And I would argue that we're going to see a little bit of a shift as we have at other periods of time when the price of oil has been a little bit under pressure. You probably don't have a big opinion on what that's going to look like from your vantage point, but do you foresee a little bit less demand on gas engines and maybe even a little bit more EV in our future? Anything you want to say on that as breaking news from Eager K at the auction?
Are you asking me if I want to say anything?
Yeah. You want to
that's a loaded
get
question.
political?
No, that's a loaded question for me. I pass on that question.
All right, fair enough. All right, so one thing that you've talked about in your intake form is you talked about working the service lane to acquire vehicles. How big of an inventory source is the service lane in March of 2026? And what's your process to capitalize on that?
So we're just dipping our big toe into that because everywhere we go, I mean, NADA, the two biggest seminars were acquiring vehicles, used car vehicles, and retaining techs, right? So, we're servicing probably an average of 150 to 60 cars a day, right? We're the only ones bidding on that car. Right. Yeah. And I know this is the new wave going on out there, but it's true. And we kind of put a team together to do it, and we're stumbling a little bit. Right. And it's just as before you walk, you crawl, and that's where we're at. But we're getting some great success. And some of the stories that I listen to at NADA, these guys are really acquiring a lot of cars out of their service lane. And, it depends on your retention. Like our store has a huge retention. I mean, our customers trust us. They've been coming here since, you hear it in the service lane, the 60s, the 70s. And, it's great because you have their service records You're not buying a car. You know that you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to figure that out.
So I think a lot of stores are, and in fact, service lane acquisition is one of those things you almost hear as a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it. Not everybody's figured it out. We'd love to hear from our listening audience in the text. We'll bring those comments in. As you're thinking about it and you're starting to create that process, what does the process look like? Who's conducting those appraisals? How often are you executing on those? And then how many vehicles are you picking up on an average month since you began?
So, great question. So we've switched gears a couple times. We thought maybe one of our used car managers would sit down there and start having the conversations, and but our clients, we have such great relationships. Our clients didn't know our used car managers, so we thought our senior advisors would be the ones to say, "Hey, Sam, today when you're in here today, how about a complimentary appraisal on your vehicle?" And that really seems to be getting traction. Now, we just started it about a month ago. I think we bought maybe 8 to 10 cars out of there so far.
Okay.
But a lot of appraisals and a lot of tire kicking. We're planting seeds, and in this business, a lot of things you do, you don't get instant results.
Yeah. So transitioning from the used car acquisition piece, which I do believe in, I think you can have a major impact on used cars, overall dealership profitability. You've opened this new commercial center and you've talked about backfilling the main shop. What does backfilling the main shop look like in March of 2026 after you've opened this huge commercial service center there at Ford?
So what our plans are to start. We struggle with transmission repairs in the Ford world, and any Ford dealers out there listening would probably say, yeah, that's a true statement. So we are actually creating a transmission shop inside of our shop that we're going to expand. And a lot of our Ford dealers around us are a month out for transmissions, and then you got loaners, and it really puts a bind on your business. So we're going to expand, have an internal transmission shop for all makes and models inside of our dealership. And of course, we're trying to buy more used cars. Instead of running the used cars through the main shop, we're going to have a used car recon center. So a lot of good, exciting plans. We have a vision. We just got to get there.
Yeah. And truly in 2026, Fixed Ops is a big opportunity in operations. You've capitalized on the commercial side. We reported last year, 2025, Ford is the #1 most recalled OEM. How are you meeting customer demand and needs for those recalls? Are you involved in mobile service? Is there anything you're doing different in your organization to help create a great customer experience for those customers that are going through recalls and or routine warranty service?
In the Ford world, Ford has pressed mobile pickup and delivery, and we got 5 mobile vans, 3 really running. So are we doing anything different? I wouldn't say anything different or stands out compared to all the other Ford dealers in our world. It's got to be its own business. It's got to have its own advisor, its own. That's got to be a little iceberg off the big iceberg, and it's got to run like that, or you're constantly, looking and searching, trying to figure out how it works.
Yeah. Ford has done a lot in terms of supporting the program with factory money with mobile service. Are you guys all in on mobile service? How many mobile units do you have, or are you doing more pickup delivery work?
So we do a lot of both. We're not some of the superstores that are out there, but we do well with it. We have 5 vans, but we only have 3 running at this time. And pickup and delivery, I think we have 8 porters in the morning, 8 porters in the afternoon, and clients love it. It's great. All manufacturers, it's easy CSI.
So going into the text, Eager K says every dealership should have at least 2 dedicated transmission experts on hand that do nothing but transmissions. Eager says, I agree. And then BDN Ghost 69 says, what do service managers and advisors think about? This is a question for you, Gary. What do service managers and advisors think about possibly losing customers and selling less hours when cars are bought in the service lane? So one of the tricks to used car acquisitions and services, what do you do with the revenue lost to the service department when we snag it as a used car, sell them a newer vehicle, Gary?
So, we're a month into it, and I think out of the ones that we acquired, 75% of them bought a new car. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great question. We're pretty fortunate in service that, our flow is pretty strong. But, we haven't got to that point where we said, hey, we're going to hurt our service department, because you got to keep it all going, right? You got to keep everything rolling.
All right, Gary, as we wrap up, and then we're going to bring you back for the roundtable at the very end, a lightning round, if you will. If there's a dealer listening today, Gary, that says, hey, I want to grow service revenue 20% this year in 2026, in your opinion, where should they start? What's starting grounds for that 20% boost in service revenue?
Hands down, commercial.
Yeah.
There's so much of it out there. It's higher labor rate. They fix their vehicles. You don't, half the time you're not even waiting on OKs. I mean, you just need them fixed, and it's so strong. Such the low hanging fruit of our business.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that it's been it's a need that's been undermet, and you've executed on strategy to go after it. Garry Kaiser, president of LB Smith Ford Lincoln. We appreciate having you on the show today. Thanks for joining to share your perspectives. We'll have you back as part of the lightning round at the very end. Thanks, Garry.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we are full swing into Fixed Ops Friday. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks for posting your comments on social media. Again, we'll continue to bring those into the show. Eager K reporting live from the auction as it relates to used car values with gas engines. That'll be super interesting when you think about impact to EV and EV demand if the price of oil becomes significant through this Iran thing. Let's talk Great America. Today's episode is brought to you by Great America. Great America finances build-outs and remodels, including service equipment, collision and repair, body and paint, EV charging, car washes, signage, and software. Upgrade your dealership without draining cash. Learn more at greatamerica.com/dealer build. And we appreciate Great America for supporting today's content, including that great conversation with Garry about servicing commercial vehicles and their expansion to meet that growing need in automotive. And then also their new initiative aimed at going after used cars, and really, they're working to perfect that. So I think a lot of us can learn from that. And I am super excited to get my 2020 fixed t-shirt from their organization. I love that rally cry. So let's swing straight into our next guest. Up next, Fixed Ops Director at Bozard Ford, Matt Norris. Welcome to the show. Matt, welcome. Hey, we appreciate having you. And by the way, one of the things I love about automotive is we pivot fast. We had a couple last minute changes, and you were gracious enough to raise your hand and working with our team to come in and be part of today's conversation. So thanks. You work with Ed Bozard, who we've had on the show in the past, and you guys are a growing organization out there. So your technician, actually, first of all, Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you and your store.
So Matt Norris, Fixed Ops Director at Bozard Ford Lincoln. I've been in the industry probably 30 years between being a technician, service advisor, service manager, and now fixed position. But I love the industry. I don't think I would want to do anything else. It's been very rewarding for my family, and seeing the growth and development of the people that I get to work with every single day has been phenomenal. So
that's awesome. Well, your technician pipeline in service is one of the most interesting in the industry, and you've intentionally built that. Walk us through how you've built that technician pipeline and how you continue to grow and develop technicians within the auto group.
Sure. So 2016, prior to me getting here, I've been at the dealership almost 8 years now, but in 2016, the dealership started what we called TDP, our Tech Development Program. And we started off with one instructor and a couple of entry-level technicians. And we felt that the only way that we were going to be able to get talent into the dealership, which is what everybody struggles with in this industry now, is getting talent, right? And unicorns aren't, they're not falling from the skies. And so we got to grow our bench, and we've got to develop people. And we felt the best way to do that is to start our own development program. And we work very closely with two of the tech schools in the area. We have great relationships with them. They both have automotive and diesel programs. We invest a lot into those schools with finances and commitments, et cetera. And because of those relationships, we have a pipeline of students that come into the dealership. And so as those entry level techs come into our quick lane, that's typically where we'll start them. They spend 5-6 months on our quick lane. It gives them an opportunity to understand and know our culture and know how we do things. It gives us an opportunity to make sure that individual has what it takes. And then from there, we move them over into what we've changed TDP into BTI, Bozard Technical Institute. And we've moved that into a nighttime role. So those students come into the program. They start at 2:00. For the first 2 hours of the day, they spend working with the instructors, doing the required Ford web-based training, so they can start working on getting their certificates and their training. And then at 4:00, they come into the shop from 4 to midnight. They work 4 10s, and then they come into the shop at 4 p.m. and they work very closely with other students and their instructor. And they work on live cars. We do pretty much everything except heavy line work for the most part. But 2/3, I think it's roughly about 2/3 of our technicians, our masters, our senior masters in the shop, have come out of that program.
Yeah.
If you walk through our shop, it's very compelling when you see the medium age of the majority of our technicians are 35 and under.
That's impressive. At Ziegler Auto Group, Bob Keel was on last week or week before, talked about a similar program. So props to you guys on that BTI. And I asked you pre-shows, how many technicians do you have today on staff that are from that program? And it's astounding, the impact that it's had to your ability. So as you recruit technicians into this industry, what do you think the biggest myth is in automotive when kids are thinking about a career? What do you think is the biggest myth in automotive that prevents a lot of kids that would be great technicians from exploring that as a career potential before coming to your school?
It's a steep learning curve, right? Advisors usually need 6 months of training, and for the most part, they've got it and they can run the ball down the field and be very successful. Technicians, it's a whole different ballgame. There's, in my opinion, from entry level to being senior master or knowing what's going on and how to properly get a vehicle and diagnose it and actually repair it, it's 3 to 5 years. And so I think between the learning curve and a lot of technicians, or the younger generation's a little unsure of flat rate, I think those are probably the two of the biggest myths. As long as you have some of the programs like some of us out there do, I think it's helps support, grow, and develop those individuals so they don't have to have those fears.
Yeah. And shame, it's kind of our fault as an industry for not having supported such a technical skill with training and development. You can't go to, college isn't the best place to learn to become a technician, right? And School of Hard Knocks in today's increasingly complicated world isn't also. You've got to really recruit, cultivate, career path, guide them through that. What do you think is the biggest mistake most dealerships make when they're trying to recruit great technicians, understanding where they come from and the success you've had?
So from past experience and knowing a lot of people in the industry, what I've seen seems to be the biggest mistake is to bring entry-level technicians in and make an assumption that because they've been to school, they know how to go out and fix a car.
Yeah.
That's not reality. And you've got to support them. You got to pour into them. You've got to put them either with a mentor if you don't have a training program. But it really just takes a special someone to wrap their arms around that individual and want to grow them and want to develop them. But if you've got those kind of people in your dealership, I highly encourage you to figure out a way to get those entry-level people in to spend time with those people that are willing to pour into them.
So you've invested a lot of time, training, expertise into BTI. If there was a dealer that's listening today that says, hey, I want to create this technician pipeline program tomorrow, what are the first few steps they should engage in to create that?
So I think first and foremost, you got to identify the individuals within, either you bring people in from outside, but preferably you identify those people within the shop that are willing to take the time to grow and develop those people. Then you've got to go out and develop those relationships with either the high schools or the tech schools so that you have a pipeline of people that are interested in. And then, having a culture where everybody understands that, look, we all start somewhere and we all got to focus on taking the time to teach, train, and mentor people, because all of us had one at some point in time, right?
Yeah. All right, I want to transition over to props to you guys for your commitment to developing talent, recruiting people, and helping young individuals see automotive as a career opportunity. Before we get into service, mobile service, Ed Roberts, who may know a thing or two, he says, hey, ask him about Bozard Built. Tell us what that is, straight from the boss.
So a couple of years ago, we've been doing a lot of accessory builds. We've gotten more heavily involved in building trucks, and we wanted to brand that and create a new vertical within our industry. Maybe not our industry, but it's certainly at our dealership. And so we branded Bozard Built, and we've just hired a manager, Justin, to run that program, and he's doing a phenomenal job so far. The team here is phenomenal, but we really want to dive into that market where we can have a lot of fun with consumers. We can build some cool stuff. We can have some fun with it. And I'll tell you, from my standpoint, there's nothing cooler than being out at a car show or being out at the grocery store or Target or something and seeing one of our Bozard Built trucks, because they're all branded that way. It's like, we
That's
look
cool.
at it, instantly it's ours.
Yeah. So, and no matter where you are, everybody looking at it can see it and they acknowledge it. And they see what it is. All right.
Yeah.
We are powering out right now of a time in automotive history where there were less new cars in the market. So less UIO for a lot of dealerships, maybe not as much Ford, but there were manufacturers that were constrained. There are some service departments out there right now that are saying, hey, you know what? Customer pay is not as central to our strategy. We're living off recon, warranty pay, that sort of thing. What do you think is a great target for customer pay to make a service department healthy? We all know absorption and other things like that. And what would your response be to a service manager that says, hey, you know what? It's kind of different here. Customer pay is not as big a deal. UIO was lower over the past several years. So we're going to focus on warranty work. We're going to focus on internal recon and used car sales. What do you say to that manager?
Well, that's a loaded question.
It is. I love the loaded questions, by the way. It helps my own curiosity. Go ahead.
So I'm a firm believer that we need to care for people's cars. And I think everybody, from a consumer standpoint, I think everybody has different levels of how they want to care for their car, whether it's, hey, I leased this thing for 2 years and I'm really not super concerned about, spending all this money on 30Ks or whatever the case may be. But then you have a lot of other individuals that they will keep their car for 150, 200,000 miles. And I think at the end of the day, it's our job as a dealership. They don't come into us knowing what they need for their car. They come into us because we're the experts and they're relying on our expertise to tell them what they need. So I do think that customer pay is a big part of our business. It's always going to be a big part of our business. But, looking at caring for their car is the biggest thing for us. Is we want to make sure that they have a good ownership experience. And then obviously, they have a great ownership experience and their car has had limited breakdowns because they've done all the routine stuff. We're going to sell more cars. They're going to come back into us and they're going to buy more cars.
So are you saying in a way, don't worry about customer pay, worry on the customer experience and the CP will take care of itself?
1,000%.
Okay. And what's a tool you use in your auto dealership here in March of 26 to lean into creating that great customer experience and fixed operations?
So obviously a big piece of that is culture. Our advisor team does a great job. I've never worked with a group of advisors like we have here. And I'm obviously biased, but we have an amazing team. But I think another key component too is the technician video MPI. I think that's
I love that. Yes. Why? What system do you use? What's your benchmark? And how good are you at doing that at Bozard?
Well, last question first. We always have the opportunity to get better. And we actually just sat down, our management team and I just sat down yesterday and we discussed how do we improve upon this service and how do we create a more consistent process in the shop. And so we're actually launching that in the next couple of days. We've got something lined up, but it's transparency. When I'm looking at a technician going over my car, they do an introduction. They go over everything on my car. They tell me, what I'm there for. Then they go over, hey, look, this is some items that need attention. At the end of the day, I don't need to be sitting on the side of the road because my car's not running properly or something happened. And, Ed and I were talking this morning about how the advisors have traditionally always had the relationship with the consumer. I believe that game can change now. And I believe that if a technician that's really, really wants to create a name for himself and really take off, flip that phone around, flip that iPad around, introduce yourself, let the consumer see who you are, and you'll build a pipeline of customers coming in that ask for you to work on their car.
So what system do you use to deliver that video MPI, and what's your percent standard? What is success at Bozard?
So we're using My Karma, and we've got to be above 85%.
Okay. And are you above 85 consistently? Is that?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Now, we're not going to do like when we bring a stock unit in for a recall or things of that nature. We're not going to do a video MPI on that, because it's time that we can use for other things.
Yeah. So to tie it back to my other question, what is the impact of video MPI at 85% and above on customer pay? Does that customer pay number go up?
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting when we first started this, and obviously some of our consumers have seen it now, but when we first started sending these out, it was overwhelming response of, this is super cool that I get to see what's wrong with my car. You guys have identified some things, you showed me some things. I saw it, or I met, I heard the technician. Like, people want that transparency and they like being involved in it. If they can be involved in it, man, what a game changer.
Yeah. Matt Norris, this is killing me because our time's almost up and I have so many other questions to ask you for. I want to transition from customer pay, video, creating that great customer experience, to mobile service. You guys have a large mobile service operation. Tell us how you're thinking about mobile service in March of 2026 and any tweaks you're making to it to win between now and the end of the year at your Ford franchise.
So we've got total of 46 units. We have 41 or 40 on the road currently. It is something that we're all 100% invested in. I don't think it's ever going to go away. My wife loves it. I don't have to bring her car in. I don't have to inconvenience her anymore. They go to the house, they do it. She's in love with mobile service. My neighbors are in love with it the first time they had it. But yeah, it's a game changer. One of the biggest things that we're focusing on this year is fleet and commercial. Retail, we're going to continue that focus, but fleet and commercial is another big focus that we're really diving into. And we're looking at going out to these fleet and commercial companies and just say, hey, look, we're here. Just give us one of your cars. It could even be an employee car. Let's just go out there and do an oil change on it. Just let us show you what we can do.
So Ford has been great at supporting mobile service. They provided factory dollars for it, as I mentioned with Garry. You take that factory support away, and A, does it still pencil economically? Is it still a very profitable enterprise? And B, do you foresee a time when there'll be a preference for mobile versus coming into the brick and mortar? And how soon is that, if you think that comes?
So I think we're there now. I think as people are getting more and more exposed to mobile service, the added layer of convenience where if I work from home, I don't have to come into the dealership and spend 2 hours at the dealership, basically with not a whole lot to do at the dealership in a waiting room, right? So there's a huge convenience there. You can go out to people's businesses. We can go out to the ball fields while their kids are playing sports on Saturdays and do their service right out in the ball fields. Like, we'll do it anywhere as long as people are okay with it. And so, yes, I do think that this is going to continue. As far as penciling and making it work without the factory money, yes, I absolutely think you can absolutely make it work. You just have to be very intentional about making sure that you're scheduling things appropriately, that you're keeping your guys with a good stream of work. But yeah, I do think it can pencil without the factory money. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, Matt Norris, fantastic conversation today. We appreciate you jumping on last minute with us. What is your biggest initiative as we wrap? Final question in 2026. What do you see as the biggest threat and the biggest opportunity in fixed ops for dealers 2026?
So I think our biggest opportunity, at least from my perspective at our dealership, is going to be continue with a focus on our Bozard Technical Institute and growing and developing young techs. Obviously, it's opened up some hours in the evening for us to do additional work. I think the third thing for us, or second thing, excuse me, is a focus on customer outreach through our service BDC center. And then the last one for us is a heavy advisor training program.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Matt Norris, thanks for being on the show. Garry Kaiser came into the comments in our internal little messaging thing. And he said, I'm just going to read this because that was cool. Spot on. In our words, love the client up, close quote. The revenue will come after. And rather than having that focus on customer pay as a metric, focus on elite service to that customer in the moment, and the rest will come. So Matt Norris, Fixed Ops Director at Bozard, thanks for being on the show today, sharing your perspectives.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
That was fun. And seriously, we had a little bit of a pivot last minute. He was great to come in, and I would love to continue the conversation even more on mobile service. But, it's only a 60-minute show. We could go for a couple of hours here. Eager K comes into the comments, says Ford's following the Mercedes-Benz playbook with mobile service and roadside assistance. He says, I think it's great. And actually, the Benz program is awesome as well. They do a lot of the over-the-air communication with the vehicle to help dispatch the vehicles and meet customer need. And again, creating that great customer experience makes it less about the price, more about the service. And people, I think, in 2026 are willing to pay for a better experience. And then Christopher Schouten says, how do we lock in customer loyalty when so many are defecting? Let's hang on to that question for the roundtable at the very end, because I think we've got just the guests to address those questions and more. So next up, we are going to turn quickly to Kevin Proctor, Service and Parts Director at Classic Chevrolet. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Kevin, you're not far away from me. So, Kalamazoo, Michigan. We're in Western Michigan. You're just on the opposite side of the state, so we share Michigan. It's great to talk to a fellow Michigander. So, for those in our audience, Daily Dealer Live, that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do out there.
So, obviously, Service and Parts Director. I started at this dealership in '99, fresh out of trade school. Started as a technician. Worked as a technician for 24 years. While I was doing that, adjunct automotive instructor at the local college. Did that for about 9 years, which was fantastic because I could take my star students and bring them into the dealership and grow my own technicians that way. I quit doing that, the whole 2 jobs thing with the family and all that just wasn't working out long term. So quit doing that. But I did love it. Got a call from the owner of the dealership about 2.5 years ago, and he said, "Well, I need you up front. So guess what? Take your toolbox home and come on up here." So
what was the biggest shift for you going from the prior role to the new role?
It's just so much. It was, and of course that first year was drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much to learn up here. It's a lot more stressful. One of the things that they don't tell you is you're on all the time. When you're a manager, you're on call all the time. When you have a day off, it's, you have your phone on you because there's often a fire to put out. There's something to do.
You serve the customer and your employees, right? And at the end of the day, you've got to be available to both. You've got to be available to the customer oftentimes through your employees. So it's learning to balance multiple hats. It's fascinating. In the intake form, you talked about you run book studies with your service advisors. I don't hear about that a lot. Service advisors getting into books and then talking about why did you start doing that? And what's the business benefit to the organization of those book studies?
So, really, I'm a bit of a book nerd anyways. So, I'm always reading something, multiple books, listening to books, whatever. I'm always looking for a little bit more knowledge on stuff. Just talking to different people and really realize that my service advisors have a gap somewhere. And I don't know if I'm totally equipped to fill that gap without help. So I started running shift meetings about a year ago. So pre-shift, we get together for about 20 minutes. We go over the day's schedule, who needs a loaner, what maintenance everybody's got, what appraisals we need to do, that kind of stuff. Talking about the sales leads, that kind of stuff. And every Friday we do a book study. So we take a chunk of that service meeting and we do a book study. So really, it really started out as a focus on hospitality. Go ahead.
What book are you reading now? What are you cracking open as you read now?
I'll tell you, but I'm going to also say I don't necessarily recommend it, but we have had some really good discussions on it. It's Right Service and Write Your Own Paycheck. There's some really good nuggets in there. There's stuff that definitely doesn't work for our demographic, but it has my advisors talking, and that's really what I want.
What's one discussion point in March of 26 that has ended in a takeaway where you've read it in the book, you've debated it, and you've said, hey, this could actually work?
Well, part of it is building a rapport with the customer, getting to know the customer, getting to know the customer's vehicle. Customer walks in, you're looking for those tags. Like, you look for their hat, their shirt, you do the walk around in their car, you look for their kids, their pictures of their grandkids, that kind of stuff. You look for that one connection point that you can get with that customer, to build the rapport, to build the trust, to get the customer to connect with you and see you as a human, not just a dealership.
So let me ask this, Kevin. You could stand up in a meeting, in a sales meeting, and give your top 5 hints and tips. Why is it better to read it in a book, have a conversation, and then have everyone arrive at that on their own versus you talking about it in a meeting and just leading the meeting with it?
Well, and honestly, we talked about it a little bit this morning in our book study. It's the idea of show, don't tell. I shouldn't have to tell everybody what to do, but I can show them. I don't have to tell my customers that we're the best dealership around. I don't have to tell my customers that we're, I have the best technicians, but I better be able to show them.
Yeah. Of all your service advisors, do you ever get some of them that are like, I just don't read. I'm not doing this. I don't understand it. I don't get it. This is ludicrous. I'm not doing it.
So, not anymore. It was a fight. Well, I won't even say it was a fight at first. I did get some kickback from it, but and not to sound harsh, but it really came down to, this is a condition of employment. This is what we're doing. It's not optional. And even though I had to start it out that way, our advisors really embrace it and they love it. And I think they love it when the books are not as good sometimes, because they can pick them apart and go, oh, this is not going to work for our customer. And, we can't do this and that kind of stuff. But again, it's getting them talking. Yeah.
But sometimes the conversation's more valuable than the information they're going to take away, because you learn to relate to each other, you learn to talk, you learn to problem solve. And sometimes you'll probably get the team gather on one side as a team. And as long as they're all banded together on it, that you've accomplished the goal. So let's transition to warranty labor rate. You talked about focusing heavily on warranty labor rate increases this year. Why is that such a big, important lever in March of 26?
Well, we really have to look to our future. With our warranty labor rate increase, it's obviously based on a lot of state laws. Whatever state you're in, the state laws drive whatever your warranty labor rate increase can be, what goes against it, what goes towards it. And really a lot of that is the customer pay repair work that goes towards that. So, back to your previous guest, the customer pay work the customer is important. The customer pay work is important, because if you don't have that, then you don't have anything to stand with your manufacturer to try to get that. Yeah,
but what do you say to the service manager that says, look, there are less new cars in circulation right now. There's going to be less customer pay because there's less cars to bring back in here. We're an expensive dealership, right? Customers would rather go to Jiffy Lube to get their repair work done, or the independent repair shop up the road, because they're super, they're saving money. I'm going to focus on warranty pay and internal. I'm not going to focus on that customer pay. What do you say to that manager?
Well, if we don't have the customer pay, we don't have the warranty. People buy their first car from the sales department, but they buy the rest of them from the service department.
So what's your biggest tip? What's your biggest tip in March of 26 to create an elite customer experience for every customer walking into your dealership? How do you train for that in the drive?
So honestly, it really comes down to the basics. Somebody needs to be on that drive at all times. That's one of those struggles that we've really had, is keeping somebody on the drive, keeping those phones answered. when that phone rings, somebody has to be there to answer it. When a customer walks through that door, there has to be a smiling face greeting them, and greeting them by name if possible.
What percent of the time would you say you're successful at that? And what percent of the time do you think we fail at that? Having someone on the drive ready to greet you by name.
Where do I want it, or where am I?
Yeah.
So I'm probably 85%. They do really well. I get it. Advisors are busy. There's always something to do. But that's something that we really need to focus on.
One of the most shocking statistics, I think, in all of automotive is CDK's recent survey where they came out and they said, hey, the average wait time for a customer calling and getting put on hold and service is 9 minutes, which means there's equal over and equal under. Does that resonate with you? And then what's the solution to that when we think about creating a great customer experience?
Oh, well, I don't know our exact metrics, but I can't imagine any of our customers are waiting 9 minutes on the phone.
There's no way. Who would wait that long? That's insane.
I'm not going to wait that long. They're going to hang up, and they might call back once. And if we don't get on it, they're calling somebody else. It's just, that's the way it is.
Yeah. So thinking about KPIs that you watch and monitor, and then we're going to get into our roundtable. What is a couple KPIs that you watch in March of 26 that are important to you to decide whether or not your team's running efficiently, effectively, and profitably?
I really like to group our KPIs together. I don't know that there's really one important KPI. We really do like to focus on effective labor rate, because that is what goes towards our warranty labor rate, is our effective labor rate. So that's a big one. But, we have our hours per RO. We have our dollars per RO. One line repair orders is a big one. All of those need to work together, because if you don't have them working together, you can have some super clever advisors trying to manipulate numbers and make things look good. So we always try to make sure everything works together.
All right. So you talk about super creative service advisors. What does the ideal service advisor pay plan look like in 2026? And then we'll go to our roundtable.
We keep our advisor pay plans pretty simple. They're based on labor dollars sold, rental. They're based on CSI, effective labor rate bonus. They're really not super complicated.
Yeah. Dan C comes into the comment, says, try audiobooks for those that just don't want to read. I agree with that. And he says it's a great solution for people who hate reading audiobooks. Eager K agrees with it. Eager K also says, I don't get it. We can show you and train you, but if they say, I don't want to do it, you say bye. And that's a standard for creating that expectation. So Kevin Proctor, classic Chevrolet, fellow Michigander, thanks for being on the show. And we're going to bring Garry Kaiser back in for our lightning round here at the very end as we wrap up today's Fixed Ops Friday. Welcome back, Garry.
Well, good to be back.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think? We just talked a little bit about ELR as an important KPI. We've talked a lot about this on the show. Anyone that watches and hears Tully as an example, Tully from Nilo would say, hey, ELR is not that great a metric. He says, I'd rather focus on retention. Garry, any thoughts about ELR versus retention?
Yeah. So, my opinion is I'm retention heavy. As I said earlier, love the customer up. ELR comes, you get the key flippers that just give you the keys and say, fix it, right? Yeah. Once you get that relationship and back to the question about retaining or the loyalty of clients, it's all relationship. I mean, it's all just knowing your clients and making them feel at home, and don't make it about a service visit, make it about their lives.
Yeah. That resonates with me. All right. First question up in the round table. This is the official. If a dealership, and anybody can take this, if a dealership doesn't have at least 100% service absorption in the next 5 years, is that just poor management?
I'd say 100%, that's shooting for the moon, right? In our region, 75%. Now we're real close to that 100%, and sometimes over, we dabble with being over that, but I mean, you're shooting for the moon.
It's definitely a high number, especially in a rural area with a single point dealer. It's, that's a tough number to hit.
Is there a better stability metric for a dealership than absorption today?
I don't know. I guess I don't really have a good answer to that one.
I would say no. I mean, we concentrate on our absorption, right? That's our, every time the statement comes out, we're flipping right to our page and saying, what's our absorption?
Yeah. All right. The service lane, next question up. The service lane might be the most underused inventory acquisition channel in the entire industry. Should every service advisor be trained to identify trade opportunities and appraise cars at a dealership of 2026 March in today's world?
I wouldn't trust my service advisors to appraise a car, but
okay,
they
can start the conversation.
Offer that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
we have somebody on the sales team that we communicate with every day. They go through the schedule with my dispatcher, and we identify the vehicles before they even get here.
Gary?
I agree. You keep the service advisors in their arena. You know, when you put them outside their arena, they already have, you know, X amount of texts, X amount of phone calls, you know, coming at them. Their plates are so full, and it's like Thanksgiving dinner. It just stuff falls off the edges, and you got to pick it back up and put it on. You'll start losing, I think, CSI if you start asking them to appraise cars.
All right.
Yeah, you
next,
have to make that barrier as low as possible.
Okay. Next question is one that just fascinates me. All right. Service advisors are sometimes the highest paid people in the dealership that most GMs don't train enough. So when you think about comp relative to training, what percentage of advisors are actually performing at their potential, where if there was additional training, attention, they could actually exceed that and be even more profitable? Do we train advisors enough, Gary?
No, the whole industry will say, I believe will say the same. You know, my opinion is we do not. They are left out on an island. And
Yeah,
you know, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
What's the solution, Kevin? Why don't we train them enough? We talk about it all the time.
Well, I guess I don't know what the solution is. I know what I do, and we just talked about the book studies. Yeah. That's one thing that I do, just to try to train the advisors. Talk to them, build a relationship with the advisor. Just as important it is for the advisor to build a relationship with the customer, you have to build one with your advisors. Get to know them. They need to be able to respect you so that you can teach them how you want things done, the tools, the process, all that.
I like your process because from your role, you're spending significant time with them. So they're hearing how you think, what you do, you're debating things from books, but not everybody has the time, the ability to do what you're doing. Is there a process in the training world that best trains service advisors?
I believe you have to get them outside their environment to train them. You know, if you try to train them, we have morning huddles and we do it, I mean, all day long, or training them, right? But you get them outside their environment where they're not getting, you know, fastballs thrown at them all day long, you know, that they retain more. Now you have to trust who's training them, right? Are they training them to your culture? That's the big thing, right?
Yeah.
And half the time you can't take them off the lane because you're so busy that you can't get them outside of this world.
Yeah. Well, I would love for a future episode to do a roundtable. You two are both invited, where we talk what is the best training as it relates to service advisors. Everybody's got training in sales. Everybody's got service training in F&I. I haven't seen a really great, other than the one-on-one you're talking about, offsite and whatnot, process. Would love to invite various trainers in to get their takes on that. To you both, Garry Kaiser and Kevin Proctor, thanks for joining Daily Deal Live in this Fixed Ops Friday roundtable. Props to you both. Congratulations. You guys crushed it today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
And hey, everybody, today was an awesome show. We had a great conversation on all things fixed ops. We've got a few great shows next week. On Wednesday, as an example, we're going to dig deeper into the broker conversation, hearing the reply side to the broker debate that we had last week. Bunch of great content coming up next week. But for now, we say thank you for watching the Daily Deal Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live 1 p.m. Eastern across all CDG social media platforms. So if this is your world, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never ever miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode. Thanks for being here, everybody. Happy Fixed Ops Friday.